Is Onyx Storm worth the hype? Today we're going to discuss the parts I liked and more importantly disliked about the characters, the best/worst parts of the plot, and then we're going to finish with some fan theories about what we can expect from the coming books. First, let's talk about Xaden and Violet. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of how their relationship was done, especially at the start. We're led to believe that they are perfect soulmates and utterly in love with one another. However, it felt like in all of the scenes where they were together, they just talked about jumping one another and how badly they wanted to rip each other's clothes off. That's fine in moderation, but I feel like in this instance it diminished the strength of their romantic relationship and it made it into something more carnal. I did really like the dynamic of having Xaden as a Venin, and I liked seeing how they navigated that situation together. It was just the absence of normal conversations between them that made it feel less real to me. I have to give a special mention to Radok. Not only was he a great comic relief character, but I love how he wanted to be on the quest with them and how they made him a part of the team. They also showed his motivation and how hard he had trained to be able to join them. We didn't get to see much of his skill in this novel, but that's because I think that they're setting up for something big. Let's go into the plot. Initially, I thought that it was quite quick and disorientating, and almost immediately we're thrown into a fight against some Venin. There were also lots of names and characters mentioned that I didn't entirely remember. Was this a bad thing? I think no, purely because I like the way it simulates how the characters would have felt in that situation, disorientated and confused, having finished such an epic battle and having lost General Sorrengail. Controversial opinion, Violet's mum was definitely my favourite character in the series. I am heartbroken that she is gone now. Moving on, we have the Scenarium, talk about finding Andana's kind, and a conflict where we meet Aura Bindhaven, who I took great pleasure in despising. I thought Dane was really cool in this scene, and I love his redemption arc. He did not hesitate to step in and assist Violet when needed, even though his signet is just not the best for combat. I'm going to make a whole video, I think, about Dane. So subscribe to see my full thoughts and comment as well what you think about him. Violet next alters the Wardstone in an incredibly genius plan, and then they get sent to Samara, where we meet this maven called Theophany. This is where I really got interested in the book, and the fact that Theophany could wield lightning as well was just the cherry on the cake, because it makes the Venin so much deadlier, and it makes you question the heritage of Violet as well, given her similarities to the Maven. I really thought in this chapter that Rebecca was going to kill off Ten, and I couldn't decide if that would be the best or the worst plot twist in the world. Also, Garrick having a second signet was such a great idea. He's also one of my favourite characters, so I'm not biased at all. And the fact they gave him such a cool one as well makes me really happy. I feel like one of the reasons that all of the books in this series are so great is just because there's so much that you're looking forward to. And an example of this is, at this point, I was dying to see what signet Violet would get from Andana, and I really couldn't put down the book until I'd found this out. Fast forward a bit, we get to some of my favourite parts. I loved that we bring Violet's dad into it a bit more, and the riddles that he left her I thought were really interesting, and I thought Haldon was an amazing addition. We then go on to our first quest squad, which expectedly goes absolutely awful. Radok freezes an orange too, which is awesome, and then our new squad heads out to Devreli. I really enjoyed all of the new areas that the team explore in the book, and getting to see the different cultures and traditions of each place. That really elevated the novel, in my opinion, from good to great. Let's talk about the Isles. After the disaster of Devreli, we get Arik, who I absolutely love, and then we reach Umbrio. That's when things get weird, and we notice that everybody there has silver hair like Violet. There's also an awesome battle, and I love that we actually see Xaden lose for once. I really like that, because at the beginning of the book, I thought it was a little cringeworthy how overpowered and perfect Xaden was. I'm pretty sure at one point they describe another character as being tall, but obviously not as tall as Xaden, which earned a massive eye roll, because it was almost like another character couldn't be better than Xaden at anything. In Umbrio, I found it somewhat hilarious that Dane was made to fight as well, but I'm glad that he did, and Violet also fought too and used lightning, which I'm honestly a little bit still confused by, so if anybody understands what happened there, please do comment it below. Next we have the Isle of Wisdom, Hedotes, where we meet Xaden's mum, which was another plot twist that I had absolutely no idea was coming. And then we get to the Isle of Zinal, where Traeger gets an arrow to the heart. I love how unpredictable Rebecca Yarros is. It really makes you scared in a good way whenever there's a conflict, because you know that she has the guts to kill off her characters. Side note, Violet's compass is definitely going to have an important role in the future books. I'm just calling it. Meeting the Feathertails was everything that I had hoped for, and honestly, I loved that they left to escape the conflict and that they were a peaceful breed of dragons. Of course, it absolutely crushed my heart seeing how they dismissed Andana though. Next, we come back to Basgiath, and the pace definitely slows. I think it was necessary though after the previous 10 chapters. I really like how we see Xaden counting the days since he last drew from the earth, and how his control is sufficient to stall his Venom progression. Violet's new signet is Dream Walking. I don't know about you guys, but I had hoped for something cooler. Tiffany alluded to how powerful Violet's new signet was going to be, however, so maybe there is more to it than we can currently see. I do like the fact that it was foreshadowed well. Next, Orisha comes under attack and the Irids come to fuel the Wardstone. It's heartbreaking when Andana leaves, but definitely necessary, and I'm excited to see how that subplot develops. Finally, let's talk about the Battle of Drathus. I want to say that I was absolutely terrified for Mira, and after losing Lilith Sorrengail, I don't think I could have handled her death. This battle was probably the most epic out of all 3 books. There was so much happening, so many revelations, including the fact that Theophany wields storms and not lightning, and that Auric has the precognition signet, and that Panchek was in fact the traitor Venin. There was also another person close to Xaden who turned Venin, but they don't tell us who it was. My gut says Bodhi, and I can only hope that I'm wrong. Quinn dies, which was awful, and Xaden turns full on Venin, which makes me even more excited for the next novel. The last chapter, however, is probably the most confusing thing that I've ever read. In summary, 4 riders, their dragons, and 3 elders are dead, and 4 riders and 6 eggs from the hatching ground are missing. There is also a ring on Violet's finger, but her memories have been wiped voluntarily by Imogen. Now for the fan theories. Obviously, it seems like Xaden and Violet have been married, and by the context, I presume that this is so Violet can take over Tyrrendor, because Xaden can no longer turn given his bloodshot eyes. That first begs the question of, why not Bodhi? Because we know that Xaden wanted him to take over when he could no longer continue. And my guess is that I think this is alluding to the fact that Bodhi was the person close to Xaden who has turned. And it also makes sense because whilst Garrick is missing, Garrick could have easily teleported away to run some errand or to do something. Whereas the only real explanation for Bodhi not being there is that he's turned. Next is the issue of the eggs. 6 have been taken, which is an interesting number because it's the same as the number of species, excluding the Irids. That makes it less sense, however, when you consider the fact that you'd need 2 of each species to continue their lines. So it's weird that 12 eggs were not taken. Who do I think took them? I suppose the obvious answer would be Xaden, but I can't think of, a real motivation for him. Given the fact that Garrick has disappeared and that he can travel large distances quickly, it would also make sense if he had taken them. But again, the question is, why? It could be for safekeeping, but that doesn't seem like a strong enough motivation. It's very important to mention that Violet willingly gave up her memories. This is most likely to avoid incriminating Xaden and whoever else has turned, but she also wouldn't have done this if she didn't agree with Xaden's plan, as she would have needed her memories to stop him. That's all of my theories. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything that I haven't thought of, and debate amongst yourselves what you think. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to see more Fourthwing analysis and my thoughts on Dane.